Hi, everyone, and welcome to this week's market update. This week, I want to talk about a topic we've been hearing a lot about from clients. A lot of clients have been asking us, should I invest in the SpaceX IPO? And this is not all too surprising. This is arguably one of the most important private companies we've seen over the last 2 decades. This is a company that's led by Elon Musk, who's arguably the closest thing that we have to Steve Jobs these days. He's a visionary. He is a polarizing figure, but he's really pretty amazing when it comes to his visions and really making them a reality. So we understand the hype around SpaceX. It's a company that over the last several years, it's revolutionized commercial space launches. It has built Starlink into one of the fastest growing commercial satellite businesses in the world. And going forward, it's expected to be at the forefront of this artificial intelligence revolution by helping to build data centers in space. So we get it. We get the interest, and we understand why, after being private for about 2 decades now, why so many are clamoring for access to these shares and why we think that this IPO is going to be so popular. SpaceX is going to be the largest IPO in history. And there's a couple more that are coming in the next weeks and months, including OpenAI and Anthropic, so other artificial intelligence plays. But we really start with SpaceX, and this is going to be a big one. It is going to be going public at a valuation close to $2 trillion, which would put it, I believe, at the number 8 position in terms of the largest companies in the S&P 500. Now, in terms of free float, what it's actually going to issue in terms of shares at its IPO, it's going to issue close to $80 billion, but the valuation on this company is going to be close to $2 trillion. So that is very significant. So what is our perspective? The first thing I would say is that a great company is not necessarily a great investment. Those are 2 different things. And so when we're looking at SpaceX and the information that was provided in their filing a couple weeks ago, we look at a couple different metrics. The first one is valuation. As I said, this is a $2 trillion company. And in 2025, so last year, this company generated about $19 billion in revenue, but they're also not profitable. Last year, they had about $5 billion in losses. Now, sure, a lot of this is because they're investing a lot in their business, but that means that the pressure is really going to be on them to actually see some benefit and payoff from these ongoing investments. And so they're going to have this burden of proof right out the gate, especially if they come out at this valuation. Since they're not yet profitable, a normal price to earnings ratio does not really help us. And so if we look at things on a price to sales basis, then we see that they are trading at the assumed IPO price. They're trading at a valuation that is close to 100 times sales, which is extremely high. And if we look at things just to provide some additional context around that, the S&P 500 trades just shy of 4 times sales, while the technology sector trades at close to 11 times sales. So 100 times sales really tells you how much people are paying for access to these shares. And so it really does have what many have called this scarcity premium here, because it's been private for so long. A lot they just want to get access. And that's why we think that at least over the short term, we wouldn't be too surprised to see this stock see a bounce, because we know so many are clamoring for shares. As more time goes on, this company is going to need to justify these valuations. And that's when investors are really going to start to focus on whether their vision is actually turning into a reality. The other thing I would mention for long-term investors is that I think when we talk about IPOs, and specifically widely anticipated IPOs, a lot of us are focused on near-term performance. What does that first day, first week, first month of trading look like? And historically, it looks pretty good. But what about the longer term story? How do these companies actually do? And here, I think it's really important to focus on some of the research that we have, actually from Jay Ritter with the University of Florida. He produced a report that looked at historical IPOs. And if we look at the just over 1,700 IPOs in the US market between 2011 and 2024, we see that on average, these companies have seen a first day bounce of 23%. which is great. And I think that's why we see a lot of hype around these IPOs. SpaceX is no different. But if we actually move forward and fast forward 3 years, we find that these companies on average underperform the broad index by about 25% on a 3-year basis in their first 3 years of trading. And so I think that's why it's really important to keep perspective here, and not every company is a great investment. So from our standpoint, this is something that we're going to watch. We think that this is, we certainly see the opportunity in a company like SpaceX, but we also see the speculation here as well. When we are looking at potential investments for our portfolios that we manage on behalf of clients, we're looking for companies that, number one, are profitable, that have a catalyst, which I could certainly argue SpaceX has, but we want to make sure they have some history. And I think that with this new company, it's not unlike other IPOs where we want to see this company season a little bit with the market as they start to as they start to be held accountable for their results in the coming quarters, and they start to participate in these quarterly earnings calls with analysts. We're really going to be getting a full picture of just how this company is doing. So we're going to be waiting to make sure that we are making a more informed decision, a thoughtful decision for how this company might trade within a more diversified portfolio. So I'll leave it there for now. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to your financial advisor. I'll see you next week.